Focus on Ghana is brought to you in association with MoneyGram.
Yes, well, welcome back to the program. We're having a discussion on the kind of changes we're looking to bring across in Ghana. And various institutions have come in to say that we should have reforms from the executive to the judiciary to the legislature and all that. Now, we are going to look at that discussion. I would want to ask you that, viewers, you can call in and contribute to the program. The telephone number is activated. You can call on 0207-501-7701, 0207-501-7701, or send an email to focusonghana@voxafrica.com. Well, the gentlemen in the studio, Kofi, Michael, and another Michael, who are helping me do the discussion. I want to find out if it is that we have to go into that kind of change that people are proposing. Where do we start? Do we start from within the parties? Well, I'm asking these questions because I want to later on throw in the premise where people are asking for some changes to be done in certain areas. But Kofi, where do we start to change? Where do we start to reform? Because we kind of all agree that there must be some reforms and changes.
Thank you. Quickly, if you look at the airlines that governs all the elections, every one has been an improvement of the previous one. You know, so we always improve the allies. So the natural assumption was that, you know, even the 2016 elections, whether there was a court case or not, there was going to be a changes and improvement, because we always assess the processes of elections and see where the flaws were and the shortcomings were, and then improvements are made. And that's why we have those IPAC thing. You know, the IPAC, the job of the IPAC is to identify the flaws.
Well, let me just put it across. The IPAC is the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. Yeah.
To identify the flaws, the problems that occurred in the elections, and then, you know, suggest improvement, and then what all of them together with the Electoral Commission can agree, and then LI is drawn up, and then it's taken to Parliament, and new airlines comes out to government.
So you think that the first kind of change we should look at is the whole electioneering process?
Well, I mean, every process, you know, must be assessed. It can't be permanent, you know, because you have to assess and review and see whether the processes are fit for purposes. You know, the institutions are there to govern elections and every other human endeavors. You have to keep, you know, assessing them, keep reviewing them to see whether they are actually fit for purpose. If they are not, you make the necessary.
I'd like just interject. You know, very good points there in terms of what needs reforming. So if we start with, say, the electoral process, or the Electoral Commission and all the institutions that govern our elections. You know, like I said, we've been on the fourth Republican road since 1992, and clearly it's been tested to the limits. Okay, there's all the issues around how we go about the administrative aspects of an election, even collecting information on voters, making sure that voters register is right. The process of voting, we've brought biometric voting, means of verification, making sure that is right. We've invested significant amounts of money in that process. The whole area of the people who administer elections on the day is very important.
Could that be the main problem? Maybe I'll throw it to Dr. Michael Amwa. The various changes have come. Initially, there was the opaque ballot boxes. We have had the transparent ones. We've had color photo IDs. Now we have had the biometric voting. We have gone through it all. Could it be that the personnel in there would have to change?
Yes, I think the whole electioneering process, the very detail of it, needs to be looked at, and we just need to make sure that we're very satisfied before we go forward. Let's not forget that the Supreme Court set off saying, wanting to investigate whether or not there were statutory violations or irregularities, and whether or not these statutory violations affected the outcome. So we're talking about the nitty-gritty of the process. In the end, when the result was announced, the expectation was whether it's going to be yes or no. The result was announced differently, and lots of people have their own disappointments about the outcome of the Supreme Court verdict. That shows that the nitty-gritty electioneering process is something which interests people very much, and the expectation is that going forward 2016, we would want to do things in such a way that these statutory violations or irregularities should not be occurring.
But those statutory violations you're talking about are more institutional weaknesses, I think, you know, where the institution of the Electoral Commission needs to look at its procedures, its processes, the way it verifies things, the way it checks things, the way it collates information, and the way that is protected, so that Ghanaians will have confidence in the process. You know, we shouldn't throw the baby out of the bathwater. I'm not saying the whole process is totally wrong. Okay, yes, we've been able to organize elections, and we have to pat ourselves on the back for that. But we can see the institutional weaknesses as the Supreme Court process, you know, clearly highlighted.
From your party standpoint, these institutional weaknesses, even though we had some admissions of that, you didn't have so much of a problem with that, did you?
No, we did. But the point is that, you know, what we're seeing with the problems with that particular elections were administrative errors in terms of the accounting of the elections, you know, because clearly the presiding officers, you know, didn't account properly, you know, what they put on the paper was contradicting, you know, and people can look at the information on the paper and say, no, there's something clearly wrong, right, which was proven in court, you know. So when we, the Electoral Commission's defense is that we can't have these people as permanent staff. These are people that we hire as and when we need them, you know. So how do we go forward from here? You know, are these people that we hired, are they fit for purpose? You know, I'm hearing from, you know, the news that the Electoral Commission says now he's going to recruit only university graduates. You know, it doesn't mean that the mistakes will not be made. You know, sometimes maybe it is because of supervision.
So then, Doctor, your point of looking at the nitty-gritty of the whole process, what do we need to change? Do we have to sweep the stairs from the top or something?
From the top sounds like a very interesting phrase. I actually think that, first of all, the Electoral Commissioner needs to have been changed after the election. But of course, we understand that the Supreme Court verdict took about some 8 to 10 months to clear. So in any case, that after the verdict had been announced, that there ought to be some resignation or some change of the Electoral Commissioner. Mainly because 2016 is not too far off. The new person needs sufficient time to be in the seat, to be able to actually get his feet under the table or her feet under the table and try and run the course of affairs. And it only makes sense to have that sufficient time for that person. So even if we have to pay, I mean, we understand that Afarijan's retirement is 2015. Even if we have to pay him off now, just so that in practical terms, the new person will have sufficient time to run the organization and get things set up.
The Electoral Commissioner himself, the chairman, says that he's gotten to his retiring age and at the end of this year, he's going off. Now, viewers, I want to pose the question I have posed to my gentlemen in the studio. Where do we start with the reform? Do we start with the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Commissioner, the Commission itself, and or the process? Well, your views are welcome. 0207501771. Michael.
Yeah, if I may come in here, I think I very much agree with what's been said here. And as a country, I think we've got to get to the point where we have a culture, okay, that recognizes when somebody does a job and they do it well, yes, they do it well, that's fine. If for some reason an institution, an individual has to take responsibility for whatever flaws, whatever problems there were in that institution, that person should honorably resign. Now, the whole process, that whole 8 to 9 month process of the Supreme Court indicated clearly that there were administrative issues, as has been pointed out. There were issues with the institutions itself, you know. So clearly there's somebody who had responsibility overall for the whole thing. Right. And I think once we've gone through that whole process, given the timeline to 2016, given everything that we have to do, the honorable thing that should happen was for that person.
I have a few here. I have a few here. Then Kofi, I'll start with you and throw it around. There is the kind of feel within the country that if it doesn't go your way, you push so that the Electoral Commission more or less becomes the enemy, number one. The NPP thinks that things didn't go well. There are various issues that were raised, taken to court. The NDC at certain points were even thinking that things were not going. Are we saying that in any case, we push the blame to the Electoral Commissioner?
I think we do.
Just to satisfy our whims and caprices?
I think we do. You know, if you look over the years, NDC have caused to complain that the Electoral Commissioner is in bed with the MPP when they lost the election.
Let me just find out from Ahmed on the line what he thinks, and I'll come back to that point and let you continue. Well, Ahmed, hello, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I have a simple question over here.
Please go.
Yeah, basically the reform should start with the honesty of the political parties.
Right.
such that, because given all the conversation we've been having, so it tells that there has been some level of reforms, perhaps it's not sufficient. But then the honesty is very, very, very important. Because you go to election, you either win or you lose an election.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
So you don't go into the election, and even before the election, and start finding faults before even the election is conducted.
Right.
Because before the election, there were all sort of rumors as to, the electoral commission is in bed with this party or that party that has been meeting here, that has been meeting there. So all that is kind of almost a planting, so that after the election, you can find fault if it doesn't go with you because you want to be in power.
Right.
You get it? So it is very, very important. The honesty has to
Will it come down to public education and the proper understanding of the whole electoral process?
Oh, yes, surely. The understanding of the process is always very, very important.
Okay.
But those people who want to lead the country,
thank you very much, Ahmed.
have to be very, very sincere.
Thank you for your contribution. Well, viewers, I still pose the question, where do we start the change? Electoral Commissioner, the Commission, or the whole process? We'll be back after that.
Focus on Ghana is brought to you in association with MoneyGram.